Hello and welcome to Copper Bulletins. I guess it's kind of become a periodical podcast now because we've all got a lot of stuff going on. But we do have something interesting to talk about now. Rob, we need to talk about Rockville. And you were lucky enough to go because it was actually down your neck of the woods, wasn't it?
It was. It was about a 35-minute drive from my house, which is the closest the warning have ever been to where I actually live.
And
So, yeah.
And that's nothing by American standards. I mean, 35 minutes in the UK, that's a serious consideration as to whether or not that's worth it. But I know that's just down the road in terms of US distances.
Yeah, I think it's about 45 kilometers from my front door to that particular place, the Daytona Speedway. So for me, that was not, of course, it's the warning. I mean, I flew to Mexico and to LA from Florida, so I think I can drive to the Daytona Speedway.
It was literally like popping out for like some milk or something to you, wasn't it, really?
I've driven further to do much less worthy things.
So obviously, a lot of us were watching it on stream, but you were there in person. You got the full experience.
Right.
Just tell us a bit about your Rockville zone. I know you will have met up with a few other members of the Warning Army there. I know that they were.
I did. People who are missed who are not here. Hella is not here today, unfortunately. But yes, she was there. The Haygood family, 3 members of the Haygood family were there. Rick Simmons, of course, and his lovely wife Joy. He's a staple at these things.
He is, isn't he?
So yeah, there was a goodly number of people there, and quite a few people who were new as well, which is great.
I don't know. Yeah, I heard there were a lot of new fans that were warned at that concert. But I also know with you being like the local man on the ground, as it were, you organised a little get together as well, didn't you?
I did. There'd been talk about it on Patreon, and no one was really coming up with locations and times and such. And me being the closest person, physically to where they were talking about, it made sense for me to get involved. I am the furthest thing from a party planner, but I went over there and took a look at a couple places. I know the area a bit, of course, since it's kind of local. It's not my town, strictly speaking, but I know Daytona Beach. If you live in Florida, you know Daytona Beach.
Yeah.
So I looked for some places and finally worked out a spot that was conveniently located in that heavy traffic area, and made a reservation and asked people to come. That's pretty much as far as my participation went. I didn't send out invites or anything special like that. I said, here, dinner's here, let's all go here, and people showed up. So that worked out great, though. We had about 20 people. There was a nice group of Patreons, many of whom I had not met before. A couple of the old regulars, like Rick, as I'd mentioned before. Reggie was there. It was great seeing him again. So it was a nice convivial atmosphere. It was a great time had by all.
It's nice to be able to do that, and that's all it takes. Someone to just say, "It's all right. I can find a place," because it's so much easier than people if you're not from the area. It's all a bit of a crapshoot, I guess.
Exactly. Imagine if there were a show in your neck of the woods, and me trying to organize a place to get together. What would I know about that?
Yeah.
So obviously, it would make sense for you to say, "Okay, we're going to go to this pub here," and just as an example.
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's nice for you to take the time, because I know, like I say, it wasn't a lot, but it's still nice for you to take the time to just go, just do a few bits and bobs just to bring everyone together.
Right, and since many of us had not met each other before, it's a lot easier to do that than to do it when there's a thrash metal band playing, 50 yards away.
Definitely.
So it worked out better to do it in the restaurant, and No, it was a great time. A lot of new faces and a lot of well, a lot of old faces always, but no, I don't mean chronologically. A lot of new and old faces, and it was great to see everyone and have a meal and talk about the warning. The relief of it is you can actually talk about the warning in person to someone who understands it as much as you do, because that is really hard to come by in this world right now.
No, I know what
So,
you mean. And I think from the point of view of the fan base, the Warning Army, I think that side of things is pretty important. It's you know there's a big part of it. Yeah, we love the band, we love the music, but I think certainly for the long a lot of the longer term fans, this being able to meet up with like minded people and like I say, talk about the
mhm.
band freely without getting peculiar looks is
And yes, and it's
so
yeah, and it's easier to get a point across in person sometimes
yeah.
than it is via a typed message. Now, sometimes you can make your point a lot more carefully with a typed message, because you can obviously review what you said and be a little more careful in that. But still, I think what's the word I'm looking for? Context
Yes,
and facial
definitely.
expression and tone of voice and all those things that are missing from a print communication. I think that makes a big difference. And it's a free and open discussion, and it's a lot of fun. 99% of the people in this fan base are genuinely good and nice people, and the other 1% generally don't show up to these things.
No.
So
And also as well, I think having meeting people in person helps you interact with them online much easier because you know them, you know their personality, you've seen how they sort of act in person, and you can translate that to their online persona. Because a lot of it, like you said, it's hard to get your point across in text or on social media. It's more easy to misinterpret. But if you've met the person and got a feel for them, then you can sort of transplant that into their written communications, and it makes them easier to understand.
exactly, and there's a shared experience now, and there are a lot of, for the old hands, there are a lot of inside jokes that not a lot of people coming
Right.
in understand. So it's one of those are where the inside jokes come from, the little dinner jokes that happen that are kind of hard to explain, that really aren't as funny for people who were not there. So that kind of stuff, it's great to have those experiences, and it
Yeah.
develops a camaraderie and a relationship beyond just, like
Exactly.
I said before, as in print.
Okay. So moving on to Rockville itself. First off,
Mm.
did you catch any other bands? Were there any other bands you were keen to see at that?
Um, as has been documented before, I am not a massive fan of hard, heavy rock and thrash metal and whatever other genres of metal you want to choose. I will say that I am a classic rock R&B guy. So the bands that were most in my lane, obviously The Warning and Skinner would be the other. I live in Florida. I've lived here for over 30 years. I've never seen Skinner. I think I probably violated some sort of state law by not
Yeah.
doing that until
Fine.
now. But the other, of course, Metallica. Metallica transcends
Yeah.
metal, so obviously I know a lot of their work well. As far as the other bands that were involved, a lot of it was brand new to me. I was familiar with some of Sleeping with Sirens.
Yeah.
I'd had Alien Weaponry recommended to me, so I knew some of the works of those bands. And Hero, I know just because of their association with the Warning Via Lava.
Yeah. I was going to mention them.
So
I knew they were there. They were. They were. I know there's one of the pictures which they're off the side of the stage, rocking out when the Warning are on, which I thought was really
yeah,
nice.
they were having a good time, and the Warning were not too far away when Hero played their set as well. Although Hero were two sets prior to the Warning, but it was the same stage.
Yeah.
So that was great, and Warning fans were there and saw Hero, since people got there pretty early to get the best spots on the rail or near the front. So we all got to see them and support them while they were playing. And plus, I think they have a relationship with the Warning somewhat via social media anyway. So it was
Yeah.
great to see.
Band because they're both young bands. They're both on the same label.
Yes. It's a slightly different brand of music. I would
Hmm.
say theirs is not quite as heavy as the Warning, and it's got a little bit more, how would I say, a little funkier maybe. than what the warning would do. That's not a negative, by the way. I love, as I mentioned before, R&B and funky music. So yeah, Hero was a lot of fun. They were great. The band that directly preceded the warning was a much heavier band called The Void, um, which is fitting because generally speaking, that's music that I would avoid. But they were a tremendous amount of fun. The lead singer, there's a lot of crowd surfing going on. I hadn't spent too much time associated with crowd surfing, but I did get kind of kicked in the head.
I think Hella's actually got kicked in the head as well. Or
Yeah,
she
yeah.
got a
Well,
crowd surfer roll over her head.
there were about 20 or 30
Wow.
stage divers. A lot of them were repeaters.
Yeah.
They got caught and went around, and basically it suddenly became like this weird, I don't know what you call it, but this circle of people, these same people that kept on coming over. But it was, it is what it is, and it was pretty much harmless. They were having a good time. And Avoid, like I said, they're a lot of fun live. I didn't understand a single word of what they were saying musically. The lyrics were almost unintelligible, but they're a lot. Like I said, they're so much fun that you kind of just went with it.
And
So I enjoyed Avoid a lot.
that's the beauty of the festival environment, because I imagine probably if someone sort of grabbed you, said, "Hey, listen to this," and played you a few of their tracks on Spotify or played their CD, you'd probably be going, "Yeah." But with the energy of the live performance and the energy of the crowd, it puts a different spin on it, and makes it a lot more enjoyable.
Yeah, and the other bands I saw directly, I was very impressed with Falling in Reverse. That is a good band. I saw Anthrax from a distance. I didn't get too close, but come on, he's Scott Ian.
Yeah.
So I know Anthrax as well, and those. But Skinner, as I said, was the band that I knew best. Metallica, Mudvayne, and Mastodon are lost on me. I don't get it. They have a huge fan base, though. Give them that. But yeah, those are the kind of bands that were there, and people
Well,
were, Go ahead. Sorry.
certainly for Lynyrd Skynyrd, they're one of those iconic bands. So if they're on the festival bill, really you should, even if you're not a massive fan, they're one you should probably make the effort to go and see, just because of the sort of the place they hold in the sort of the rock pantheon. They're
Right,
an important
and
part of rock history and
history.
rock legacy.
Yeah. And as is well known, pretty much all the original members are no longer with
No,
us, quite literally.
yeah,
So, but there's, I think, one or two people that are still there from the original band. That may not be true, but Johnny is Ronnie Van's brother, the lead
yeah.
singer. I think he's the longest holdover now. But anyway, it's Skinner. You see Skinner. It's Metallica. You see Metallica.
Yeah.
It's The Warning. You see The Warning. So for me, it was more than worth the price of admission, obviously.
Definitely. So let's move on to talk about the Warning set, because there are a few things to talk about. Mostly good, of course. Few nothing. Probably more from the point of view of someone like myself who was experiencing it via live stream. Because one thing that's come to light is the live streaming experience was very different to the in-person experience, as yourself, Ella, Isaiah, and all the people that went have testified, and even from the videos as well that were taken there.
Yes, and there's no denying that. I heard it for myself.
Yeah,
When I listened to the live stream much later on, we had no internet whatsoever on site.
you wouldn't believe.
So with the live stream, I picked up a lot more of the things that made people unhappy, and it's unfortunate. And I feel bad for people who only had access to that live stream. Um, but it's one of those things that they were in a situation where I don't think they were necessarily originally a plan to be streamed by the festival.
Could be, could be.
I'm not 100% certain of this. I do know that a lot of TWA, some who maybe belong in TWA and some who don't, got involved in the chat function with that
Yes,
and said a lot of things.
I was watching that. I wasn't typing anything, but I think it's always going to happen in chat rooms. people can be a bit obnoxious. And I know most of the time, the intentions are good, but it's important to maybe take a step back and think, how does this look to other people? Am I being annoying? Because a lot of the time, that's what yes, you are.
If
And there
you're
was a
watching this, sorry, go ahead.
being disrespectful to other acts as well, which I'm not a fan of. It's like if another act is on, if you don't like it, just be quiet. Absolutely spam everything you want to do about the warning whilst the warning are on. But no, let the other bands shine. If people want to talk about those acts, let them. Don't drown out their conversation with just warning emojis and stuff, because it's not a good look.
Right. Or maybe between acts because they're not showing constantly.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
want to say something there, say, hey, you guys going to stream the warning. But while I'll just pick an act, I didn't see many of these live, but say while Dead Sarah is playing,
Yeah.
don't come on and say, these guys suck. You wait till you hear
No.
the warning.
Yeah.
Okay, the people watching this right now, in all likelihood, they're going to be people either who like or are interested in that band. All
Yeah.
you're going to do, it's only human nature. What kind of response do you expect
No.
by
It's
telling people watching that stream right now that their band is not very good, our band's going to be better? Of course, they're going to automatically have a bit of antipathy toward the warning, which is completely unfair since they have nothing to do with it.
you've got to read the room, but also as well, it doesn't really do the band any favors, especially when it turned out that the live streaming audio was not good at all. Kind of set
Correct.
it sort of kind of set them up for a bit of a fall in that respect. The only way I
Yes.
can
Yes.
describe it is it sounded like they had a direct feed from like the mixing desk, but it was just like a line in. So normally to do something like that, you'd maybe go through some sort of speaker emulation or something, or some processing just to stop the sounds being so dry and to give it a bit of, try and replicate the space and the ambience of physical speakers. And there was like everything was flat. It sounded like power was pounding on paint pots, not drums.
Yeah. Yeah.
The vocals were dry. The mix about halfway through, the audio mix on the stream did improve, so it did get better. But first half was atrocious. That's the only word I can use for it. Second half was better. It was still bad, but it was like everything was kind of at the right level at least. You didn't have backing vocals higher than others. But also, sorry, I'm just not showing up, am I? I do think the poor quality of the stream audio will definitely highlighted some of the technical issues that the band had, which I'll be honest, I doubt they were even. I think they probably even barely noticed live because of the crowd and the energy there.
That there were some things live that I did notice, and I will say the last couple of days, information has come to light that
Yes,
clarifies a lot.
and it clarified my suspicions too, funnily enough.
Right. That now we know that none of them could hear anything
No,
through their
I
in-ears.
I did
And
wonder that. I did wonder if they weren't getting a monitor feed just from a few of the watching some of the sort of on-stage interactions. Like, I don't think that they've got a decent mix coming into those monitors.
right. And so essentially Danny was working on muscle memory alone,
Yeah,
which is not the easiest thing to do when you're playing a guitar and singing at the same
no,
time. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm, somebody who's immediately exonerating everything. There's no way around this that Danny in particular had a couple of moments in the show
yeah,
that didn't go so well. She had a rough time. But two things about that. One thing is we know that she can do very well.
yeah,
Desperados, the TV performance, putting aside whatever the issues were with the sound on that, she played great.
yeah.
So it's not an issue of playing, you know.
She seemed
Um,
nervous at the beginning, but I don't. But knowing more now, it felt she's probably nervous because she was uncertain because she realised she wasn't getting a monitor feed in the in ears, and that's always going to throw you when you're trying to play live.
Right. And if you can't hear yourself play, and I don't know if she could hear, she might have been able to hear herself sing. I didn't pick up on that, but I know she couldn't hear herself play, and Pow couldn't hear a darn thing. And someone called her drums the Franken kit, and that is a perfect description of those drums. Like, who put those things together?
Yeah,
Because they didn't
that was the ghost of that kit from what was it from the tour that they did? Come back to haunt us.
destroy,
Yes,
destroy in Zacatecas, which they wound
that's
up literally doing that to them.
yeah.
Yes.
I remember she was not happy with that kit. I remember she posted something on Instagram to whatever it say when they say just bring cymbals. It was not good. But cause I remember seeing it on the stream. I was like, what is that? That's where have they dug that up
Yeah.
from?
Yeah, I don't want to say too much that was revealed. I will say that some of the things that Carlos, their tech, the things he had to do on the fly, it was kind of remarkable that they were able to keep going as well as they did. If you take it all in as a whole, the performance itself is kind of remarkable considering all the things that went wrong for them. And as I'd mentioned, there were some times when, like the dull knives issue, that was a matter of Danny's preset on her pedal
Yeah,
board. That wasn't the sound, that
no.
wasn't her in ear, that was just Danny's responsibility, and she just didn't, and she knows that. Nobody knows better than they do the things that they could have done themselves better than they
But
did. You
also
know.
she would probably have picked up on it a lot quicker had she had the
Mhm.
feed. So that's why. But that was out of everything because watching the stream in my head, it's like, yeah, you picked up on a few things, but I was like, live, no one's going to notice any of this except maybe the die-hard fans who know these
Correct.
songs like the back of their hands. For people who've not heard these songs before or sort of casual fans, they're not going to notice. The only one where I thought, oh, this might get picked up on was Dull Knives. But even then,
Right.
she still didn't stop. They kept it going. They didn't stop it. They powered through it and got there in the end, and got there
Yeah,
quite
and
quickly.
I think it rectified within 15, 20 seconds, I'm guessing. I don't
Yeah,
know exactly, but
it wasn't long. It will have felt like an eternity on stage, but actually, in reality,
yeah,
it wasn't that long.
right. And those of us who know those songs upside down, we noticed one or two things here or there, but for the most part, the performance itself, anybody who's seen The Warning live, they're
Yeah.
so overwhelmingly charismatic when they're
Yes.
standing in
Really.
front of you playing that a lot of other things can be easily missed and or ignored or forgiven, however you want to say it. They're so ridiculously good live that you can just the passion of the performance and the power of those songs, because those songs are just so good that the rest of it sort of becomes very secondary. And that's doubly true, I think, for those who are not familiar with The
No.
Warning, as you were saying.
I got the impression that because maybe Danny was dealing with a few more issues than everyone else, I got the impression that Pow sort of took the lead a little bit more as far as sort of driving the performance forward, doing the audience interactions. It felt like
Mm,
she sort of like said, "I'll deal with this. Concentrate on sorting what you need to do out, and I'll just deal with them." But
right.
Pow seemed to be on top form in that respect.
Correct. Especially during Evolve, when she's
Mhm.
literally standing up while she's playing her bass drum, to get everybody involved. And when Pow talks like that to people, you just kind of do
Yeah,
what she
you just give
says.
it a shot, don't you?
That's the thing about that. Now, whether that was planned or not planned, I don't know. But when they both get involved in that way, it's just a remarkable thing to watch. One point I did want to make, because I was talking about the odd note here or there that maybe wasn't the correct note, or the odd chord here or there that, shouldn't have been where it was, partially because she couldn't hear it. That aside, I saw Skinner. These are guys who've been playing for 40 years,
Yeah.
and there's nobody who's got more experience anywhere on those grounds than Leonard Skinner. And I know those songs as well as I know the Warnings music. I've been a fan of Skinner for a long time. And just out of curiosity, as I'm enjoying this show, I did listen. And yes, every once in a while, those guys hit an odd note here or there.
Was I was surprised that they opened with Dust to Dust. I thought they'd be all new, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense saying like first live show back in a long time. Start with something that you really know and then you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and Dust to Dust is just a great opener. It just is a great opening song to any show. And I think they decided amongst themselves the best opener we still have in our entire catalog is Dust to Dust.
Yeah.
And so then we're going to open with that. These people haven't seen us before. I think they also made a calculation that I would be iffy about personally, and they made the calculation not to do any of the Spanish songs. I understand the
That
point of
makes sense.
view. I understand the point of view who those who say, well, they're playing in the US, they shouldn't play the Spanish songs. I have two thoughts about that. One is if you were at that festival and you understood more than 10 words coming out of any of those screaming singers' mouths, I would be completely shocked. Most of the words that I did understand are words that I cannot repeat on this podcast because every band, apparently
Yes.
here in rock and metal, you have to say the F word at least 38 times every 3 minutes for it to be considered true metal, I guess.
I did pick that up from some of the Rockville highlights, I have to admit.
A lot of that going on. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's what in the professional wrestling business, they call it a cheap pop. But every time you say
Oh.
the F word, the fans all start screaming. It's like, okay.
Love a cheap pop.
Yes, who wouldn't, you know?
Great to be here tonight in Florida.
Yes.
Mention
Yes.
sports team.
Yes. Just don't get it wrong.
No.
That's the one thing you can't do, you know? Hello, Cleveland. Yeah, we're in
I
Daytona.
was, funnily enough, slight aside, I was at a WWE live show the other week in Liverpool, and Baron Corbin came out and did his little speech and said, "Hello, Manchester." That is that was a very calculated move on his part.
Yeah, no, Corbin's too smart. He knows that he's just messing with people.
Oh, that much like a couple of years ago when I went to a show and Elias came out wearing a Manchester City shirt.
Right.
That's a very good way to draw heat. But that was
Of course.
that was the day. It turned out that show was on the final day of the football season, what you would call the soccer season, and Liverpool and Manchester City were both at the top of the table, and Liverpool needed to win and Manchester City needed to lose for Liverpool to win the title. And Manchester City won. So Manchester City had won the title that day from Liverpool like a couple of hours previous. So the heat he got for wearing that shirt was nuclear.
Yeah, that's known as perfect timing.
Elias
pulled, this is perfect, beautiful stuff for the podcast, by the way. Elias did the same thing in Seattle. He went into Seattle and he was talking about it's the same way that the city like this can't hold a basketball.
Ooh.
It is a really sore spot in the city of Seattle that they lost their NBA franchise, the Supersonics. He got a 5 to 10 minute screaming boo on that. So he's kind of an artist at finding things to really annoy people. But anyway, putting that aside, getting back to what I was saying, the words are virtually unintelligible of most of these things. Narcisista is a fantastic high energy rock song. That would have gone over great here. So I would have had no issue whatsoever with them playing Narcisista as opposed to Dull Knives. I'm not saying they should have. I'm saying that they could have, and it would have been okay.
Let's face it, they could pretty much pull any song out of that set.
Yeah. With Martirio, I understand. That's not a very, I mean, Choke they have to play. That's sort of slower mid-tempo, but that's the closest thing they have to, say, a hit, I guess.
Well, that's getting regular rotation on Sirius now, isn't it?
Right. So Choke is something they sort of have to do. I understand Martirio at the same tempo. I can understand not using that particular song. So that one I can live with. They wanted to have it a high energy 30-minute set. Narcisista would have fit perfectly in that. Also, one other note, the major city I'm closest to, Orlando, 40% of the city of Orlando is bilingual, including Spanish. So the idea that Spanish is a language that's not going to work, even among rock fans, there are plenty of people in that festival who speak and understand Spanish. So I'm not saying that it's an invalid reason. They had 30 minutes. They wanted to play the songs that everyone understood. I am saying that Spanish is the only reason might not be accurate, at least in the case of this particular festival. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Yeah.
But I respect everybody, and the band obviously agreed with those who felt they shouldn't. The band said, no, we won't do a Spanish song because we're in the U.S. But a lot of the U.S., especially Florida, speaks Spanish very well. So hopefully that's not something that they will make as a constant rule.
Oh no, I wouldn't have. I'm sure when they're doing, full hour and a half, 2 hour sets, fine. But I can sort of see it when you've only got 30 minutes. Yeah, you maybe just want to play for the higher odds.
Yeah, and I think, again, it's hard to argue with the decisions they made. There's nothing wrong with any of the songs they did play. And they only had time to play 7, absolute max 7.
Yeah.
So if you're going to pick those 7, then, if your reasoning as well, everyone here speaks English, we'll do the English songs. There's certainly a point that can be made for that. But I still think Narcisista would have been a fantastic live song to play, because it's just such a great, hard charging song that has a chant along in it, and it has everything for almost any crowd, in my personal opinion.
No, I agree. You've got the sing along, you've got the chant, you've got the thumping drums, you've got the guitar solo, a little bit of everything,
and a lot of crunch.
Yes. But so I was really excited to hear Z live, as live as I could hear it. And it looked like they had a lot of fun playing that.
They did. I think I'll give this away. We have this monthly live chat on Patreon for people at a certain level, and I was in that yesterday. That Ale sort of, and they all sort of agreed with this, that maybe they should have closed with Evolve, but it's the first time they'd played Evolve in front of a live crowd, and that hit really hard.
Yeah.
Everybody in there got really excited, and Evolve might have been the best reaction they had from the entire crowd.
I suppose, as well, thinking about it, Evolve and Choke are the 2 songs that have been around the longest from the EP.
That, and plus Evolve has a nice long breakdown where you can sort of bang your head to it.
Yeah.
And that's a crowd that loves banging their head to stuff. So, and plus Pow had everybody fired up, everybody in the back, clap your hands, that's it. And she stood up while she was playing the bass drum, and you could tell people were really getting into it, but they hadn't played it live. Now they realize, okay, this hits much different live than it does on the record.
You aren't going to know that until you've gone out there and road tested it and seen the reaction.
So yeah, I think if they had to do it over again, I think the only thing they would have done differently, obviously besides the technical issues being worked out, I think they would have played Evolve last. But in any case, it worked out great. When I walked in there with my warning gear on, no one said a word to me. No one looked at me twice, which is good.
Breaking my heart.
No, it's fine. When I got there, though, after the show, when the warning played, and the rest of the evening, when I'm walking around getting my food or whatever it is I'm doing for the rest of the evening, multiple people pointed at me with my warning hoodie on and said, them. They kicked ass. I was shocked. They're really good. So overall, I think it was a triumph for them, especially when you consider everything else that happened to them. But even without all that, they still persevered and put on a terrific show.
Certainly from maybe the point of view of someone watching them for the first time, I would imagine that what stands out, say that they're all phenomenal musicians, they're all really talented, but I would imagine what stood out to us would have been Powell's performance, because it's not often that the drummer will sort of lead the band like that and have that kind of presence from behind the kit, especially one that's so short.
Yes. Like I say, she stood up. A lot of people may not have even known that happened.
No,
that's not very nice. That's a height joke, but it is true. Powell stood up. It's not a huge difference from she's sitting down.
But she just has a ridiculous amount of presence behind that kit.
Yes.
so many bands, the drummer will just sort of disappear. They're just there at the back, head down. You don't know they're
Yeah.
there. I'm trying to think of you. Tommy Lee springs to mind. Um, I think even
Well,
Nick Keith Moon, yeah,
Keith Moon. That's where I
but I
was going to go.
yeah, but I think even Nico McBrain and Iron Maiden, he's a massive personality. But probably because he's got about 8 million drums. But I don't think you tend
Yeah.
to see much of him during a Maiden gig. He's not. Whereas, especially with them being a three-piece as well, I guess there's less attention to be divided up. But
Correct.
when Pow's on form like that, she's just like a magnet.
And I think they made a decision early on. I think this was a calculated family decision. I imagine her father was heavily involved in this. The drums are set up in such a way on her own kit where Pow can easily be seen.
Hmm.
Now, Neil Peart had no interest really whether you saw him or not. I mean, you could see him, but often he was kind of way behind that massive kit that
Right,
they had in Rush as well.
that rack of toms up there, didn't he? Sort of.
Correct. And so those things were not always noticed, but they knew right away, okay, we need to see all three people in this band. There's only three of them. And
Yeah.
Pow is so just naturally charismatic, as they all are. Pow needs to be seen. So they have the kit set up in such a way to where you can always see her. And she loves to work a crowd. It's what she and Danny were born to do. And Ale is the perfect contrast to that because people are even more fascinated with the fact that she doesn't do anything beyond play the songs, feel the songs, dress in a, sort of a quirky and interesting sort of way, and has this sort of quiet intensity about her that just absolutely fascinates people. Whereas
It's
Pow and
cool.
Danny are like out there
Yeah.
performing their tails off. Ale's just kind of doing her thing, and it just that contrast works so well with them.
Yeah, Ali has a whole enigmatic thing down. But
Yes.
like I say, it's a good contrast of personalities on stage as well.
Yes. But they're all, they're Allie's performing her butt off too, just in a different kind of way. But yes, Paulina and Danny was having the time of her, even with the stuff that went wrong. She
Yeah,
was having the time of her life out there. That clip of her running out on stage,
she
I'm
just
glad they
bowed out.
showed that. She literally bounds onto the
Yeah,
stage. She was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." And there were a lot of people, myself included, who found themselves getting a little bit emotional at seeing them, not because to make it sound like it's weird, but now just because circumstances in the world have been what they are, we sort of have been through a pandemic together now,
yeah,
or we're still going through one, obviously. But the warning for a period there, obviously, they couldn't record for quite a while. They couldn't play live for anyone on any stage, and everything was at a dead stop. And they still had their Patreon, and they did all kinds of stuff to try to entertain people, playing games and the cooking shows and all that stuff. And I think if anything, it made the bond between the band and their audience even stronger than it was. And so
I
when they came out
agree
on
with
that stage, it was about music, but it was about more than that.
that. Yeah,
It was
no,
about here we are again. We made it kind of so
yes,
at least up to now, we've
yeah,
all made it.
no.
And
I'd
that's
agree
why
with you 100%, Dave. I think for most people, certainly for the longer standing fans and certainly the Patreon fan base, um, I'm sure for everyone in there, the band's activities during the pandemic have played a big part in helping people cope with the last 18 months, 2 years, whatever.
and they were uniquely qualified anyway, since they
Yeah.
work from home and they hardly ever leave their house as
No,
it was. So they actually were giving people advice on how to deal with
yeah,
being stuck in your house for days and days at a time because it's actually something that's within their skill set.
yeah,
And but those things combined with just, the good humor they had, all the IG lives that they did, the audience still grew and still developed. Their Patreon membership actually went up post pandemic. So when everyone else's economic situation became rather dire, theirs actually did quite well, at least in terms of Patreon.
It's more than doubled
Mm.
since the pandemic started, hasn't it? Because when they did the quarantine show, hadn't they just passed like 750 odd or
Probably so.
maybe
Probably so. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I think it was
why not?
a lot of
Call,
us
call yourself a fan.
thought, yeah, sorry, that's okay. I don't mind. I mean, people who show these pictures of like their merchandise all laid out on a bed, I could do that, but I'm not really interested in that kind of that kind of
Yeah,
thing. I mean, I have lots of stuff, but and maybe I'll show it. But someone showed a picture of their stuff all laid out on the bed, their t-shirts and stuff. Somebody else said, well, I'll show you mine, and then suddenly it becomes this thing. It's like,
it's an
oh
arms
God,
race. Yeah, you don't need to
yeah,
flex.
we're all great fans. It's okay.
Yeah.
Although if I ever have like a selfie with them, in their house holding onto a set list, I will absolutely flex that.
Mhm.
But the other stuff, it's just all in good fun. As long as they know it's in good fun, it's fine.
That was one thing I thought was really nice as well. That they took the time to run the rail after the set.
Yes. And I think as much as possible, they did a little bit of a not an official meet and greet, certainly,
No,
but they took selfies with some people and spoke with people, signed one or two things. They did what they could do, but in the context of, well, for two reasons. In the context of a festival, there is no place to have a meet and greet.
exactly.
That's the first thing. And second thing, it's just still not necessarily the best time to be in super close proximity with
No,
people yet.
no,
I don't want to delve too deeply into that topic because everyone has their own opinion. But I think common sense dictates that we're still not in a place where we can all be that close together, especially with the band. They
no,
can't have those kind of issues because vocal issues can be permanent with this in
no.
some
Certainly, yeah.
cases.
No, definitely. But yeah, I'd say the live stream wasn't good, but
Mm.
thankfully all you guys went and took videos and stuff, and it's like, okay, the live stream wasn't great, but it's clear that actually in person they smashed it. It was really surprising to hear a raw cell phone recording have way better audio than the official live stream from the actual gig.
That it did. And again, the Haygood family, let's call them out and give them the credit they deserve here.
Yeah.
Isaiah got the better sound, and
Mm.
Calvin, his brother, did a terrific job
He did, yes.
meshing the video of the stream, which was relatively good,
Mm.
compared with Isaiah's sound. And you couldn't have done it better than he did with that. That they did a
Oh,
fantastic job combined.
yes, yeah, I've seen those videos. They're really good, and it's just crazy how decent a sound you can get just from something you carry around in your pocket every day. But
Yeah.
I'm very
Well, I
glad.
mean, I'm talking to you on an iPhone 12. So, I mean, and look how fantastic I look. No,
Yes.
I mean, I just mean is you can get a pretty decent quality video and audio these days
Mm.
remarkably easily, which makes that stream even more frustrating,
Yeah.
obviously, for people who like, if I can do better with my phone,
Yeah.
what are you guys doing? You
Have you
know?
have you
But
have you made it worse with all that stuff? And think, of course, the Evolve video was shot on iPhones.
yeah, yes, it was. Isn't that true? Yeah. Yeah, I heard another band is going to shoot all their videos on a Samsung's just to be different, not make it seem like they're copying or anything. I'm kidding, of course.
I wouldn't be doing that.
No. But yeah, a good time was had by all. It was great to see everyone again, those of who were there. I wish they'd brought merch. I understand why they didn't. I don't think any brand did. So there was obviously Metallica merch was there, and I think there was lots of Rockville merch, but the other individual bands did not. I was fortunate to see Luis before the show and asked him if they brought any merch. He said no. I was like, oh man, I was trying to save money on postage, but okay.
And yet the thing is, as well, it's kind of a pity because they could probably have sold a truckload.
Oh yes.
Because I know you're not the only. A few people have. The general sort of theme coming out is after their set, people being called saying, "Where did you get your shirts or
Mhm.
your hoodie or whatever or your cap?" It's like, well,
Yeah, yeah.
brought it with
No,
me.
yeah, I was here before you, sorry. But yes. There were plenty of people who came up and asked, you know, a little bit more information about them. And you share as much as you can. Again, it's hard to tell people much while Mastodon is playing.
No.
But it's a huge area. I mean, if you're in between the two stages in the infield of that racetrack, there's actually a lot of space. It's several hundred yards between those stages. So it's
Really nice, warm, fuzzy feeling inside when people called you about the show. It's like, oh, I saw them; they were great. It's like, yeah, they were, weren't they?
it is, yeah. And then when in times I did have internet, which was only like one corner of the infield for some reason. When I did have internet, the only thing I saw within the Discord and on the other servers were the things they were unhappy about, which is interesting. It's an interesting dichotomy because the positivity that I got was live from people who were either at the show or people who didn't know the warning at all who saw the show. The negativity that I saw was from people who were angry, and I understand they're being upset about the stream. So it's interesting how that worked out on the day. But in the end, it all comes out in the wash. The performance itself was what mattered most, and there was a lot of people there, probably more people there than even watched that stream live. So, on balance, as I said, I think it's a triumph for them, considering it's their first performance in front of people in a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's easy to focus on the technical hiccups and stuff like that, but like you say, the overall, when you take a step back and look at the overall live experience, yeah, positives far and away outweigh any potential negatives, if you want to call them that.
Yeah, I wish I could give you a decent estimate of the number of people in the crowd. The picture gives a pretty good idea. It doesn't cover it all, but it's a pretty good idea. The try that again. Post show photo. I turned around, but I was on the second or third, row, and I couldn't see the end of it. So
hard to. It'd be interesting to know if that was a bigger crowd than they managed to pull up Heaven and Hell.
Again, I don't want to estimate that. I think so. I think so, but it's hard to tell. The sound check booth was, I'm not even going to try to guess how many yards back. It went well beyond that. It was more than halfway between where the warning played and where Anthrax played. Anthrax played one of the two main stages, and there were people facing the warning that were all the way back onto the grassy area that would have been designated for Anthrax, who were coming on very shortly after the warning finished. So I don't know. Originally I said 3 or 4,000. I think I undersold that quite a bit.
It's always difficult to try and count those kind of crowds.
I think it's probably double that. They had between 8 and 10,000 people just in standing room, of course, and the amount of people who were just hardcore warning fans was a very small percentage of that. So it was, just an amazing amount of people who were curious enough to stop or who liked what they were hearing enough to stop to check them out and go, wow. So as they say, a lot of people were warned.
And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Well, thank you very much for coming to chat, Rob. I say we wanted to get Hella, but she's not well. I have a friend who's come to say hello.
Oh, hello. What's your name?
This is Kingston.
Hello, Kingston. Hi, Kingston. Did you know you're the capital of Jamaica?
He is, yeah.
Kingston. Yeah, I am. Kingston,
he's like,
didn't know that.
And he's waving his paw at.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, Father.
Oh, look at that. Looks like Kingston's. Yeah.
Father, release me.
Yeah, that's more like the look I'm getting there is more like a prisoner. Someone who's happy, but I would show you Parker, but he's inside. He doesn't like to go outdoors and the temperature goes below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. What is that? 17 or 18 in your temperatures? That doesn't please him. So
Parker's not daft. He knows what's what. But yes.
Yeah.
Thank
He's
you
a
for coming to
Chihuahua,
chat.
so Chihuahuas don't deal well with chilly temperatures.
No,
Yes.
not a lot of body mass to generate warmth.
Correct.
But yes, but thank you for coming to chat. Pity we couldn't get any more, but lovely to hear about your Rockville experience, and also good to hear firsthand that actually the actual festival experience was amazing, and to not pay too much attention to the issues that the live stream had, because that would
Right.
that
I mean,
been a minor part of the overall thing.
yes, missing the forest for the trees. That's a saying that we use around here.
Exactly. That's anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you. You've got to go catch the Vikings, haven't you?
Yeah, well, if I don't see my weekly loss, I don't know what to do with myself. I have to get used to watching the Vikings lose football games. It's 50 years of this. I don't know why I shouldn't keep the tradition going.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to lose step out of the habit, do you?
No, the one time Rudy actually answered me on a message on Facebook was when his team beat mine over the most ridiculous thing, and he got a big old kick out of that. It must be nice to be on the winning side all the time.
Oh, did they get spanked by the Cardinals? Did they?
No, we had like a 25-yard field goal to win, which is when you actually do kick the football. And at the end of the game, and he missed it.
Oh.
He missed it. I could make that. I'm 51 years old, and I have made 35-yard field goals in my life. This was 10 yards closer to that, and he's getting paid $500,000. It's your job to make those.
Yes.
But anyway, sorry.
But anyway, we'll leave it there, and that's sawn over you.
Yes, please. Let's not keep that.
Yeah, let's not keep it. But yeah, thanks so much, Rob, and thanks to anyone who's listened. If you're at Rockville, leave a comment, or especially if you caught the band for the first time there, let us know your thoughts.
Yes, and if you met me, I do apologize.
Yes, and we'll see you on the next one, whenever that may be. I don't know. Nearly Christmas, isn't it? A lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see you soon. Bye.
All right. Thank you.